why you don't pay the tax? Gasoline is still expensive, so I still think you're still going to want to look at compressed natural gas vehicles and all those kind of things to continue to save money. But when you're talking about 28 cents a gallon, you're talking about roughly 10, depending on time of year and the price of gas, 10%. So I think you still want to encourage people to do that. But look, we got a reality as Uber or as Teslas and hybrids and stuff become more and more popular. We have to maintain our roads for them. And if you go take it out to its logical conclusion, it's all electric cars. So that's what we're trying to address.
I can imagine in like poor rural communities where people can't rely on public transit, but they need to buy cars, that $140 is going to be a pretty big sticker shock to swallow right up front.
Right, and we talked about the possibilities that you allow them to stage that maybe make that in payments and that kind of thing, which versus paying gas. And so those are the kind of things that we're going to present to the General Assembly and let them decide what they think is best, and we'll impose what we think is best on that. But the King Air thing, that I talked about, that really surprised me.
Yeah.
Okay, we're
Yeah.
done.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
Let's hear about that.
Huh? Well, they said by salt and related equipment.
And airplanes were really
Apparently.
salt in the road?
So, and you're talking to somebody who's, my dream airplane is a 1963 Aero Commander 560F. So the fact that we were flying a 1973 and a 1982 plane, I don't find that shocking. I mean, they were meticulously maintained and well cared for. And so I didn't, that was one of the things I heard, that the plane was so old. And I'm like, in the aviation world, that's not old.
The hours that you quoted, 36 hours and 52 hours, was that the year in which the governor was running for president, and therefore he was just not flying in the business?
No, that was 13, 14. So that was before anything. That was not related to that at all.
And so, Howard, what mechanism are you going to use to assert the legislative?
Ideally, we would delete the transfer authority of the OPM director, because we put in there, when we look at the language in the temp language of the bill, it gives the OPM director in the temporary language, it gives him authority to retransfer money without even going to control the board. So,
Does the control board agenda make it longer?
No, actually, he wouldn't come. He'll just send us a report. Here's what I transfer the money, and here's where I want it. So, I would be happy if the controlling board agenda got longer, because we get almost everything done with phone calls and everything before the meetings. We always try to work and ask our questions and have all that data so that the meeting is an efficient meeting, and we clear up any questions beforehand. But at least I do, and I think the other members of the controlling board do that. But when they don't even have to ask, that's the problem. And that just really disturbed me a lot. So, I wanted to fix it in the last General Assembly, and when that didn't succeed, we were going to fix it as soon as possible in this General Assembly.
What about the mechanism to fix the games that some people play in terms of coming in at $49.99?
Yeah.
And then making multiple purchases?
I know that's a concern for a lot of people, but
You're worried about?
we look at all that kind of stuff. We look at all of it, and that's why you want to see, and that's what hopefully comes out during the biannual budget process, where you see what all the expenditures are going. Wait a second, I see your department is spending all this money, and yet you're never there with the controlling board request. Are these all, open bid contracts, or these, and you get into those issues. And that's what's supposed to come out in the budget process, but if it's not in the budget process, you'd like to see it done in the controlling board sequence, so at least the members of the General Assembly are being consulted and their permission is being obtained before the expenditures go out.
So your concern wasn't necessarily about the King Airs, it's just about the whole process.
Well, as I said, when you look, before I would have approved an expenditure for King Airs, I would have at least gotten answers to the questions of, if we're only going to fly it in 36 hours, you don't need the plane. I can go, I did some checking and I can charter that plane for $1,300 an hour or $1,500. So multiply that times 36. That's not much of an expenditure versus spending what was the number on that plan? I think it was $4.25 million on a plane that's being used 30 hours a year. That would be crazy. So
Does the 4.25, does that include pilot salary?
no, that was the capital expenditure. It might have been, I think part of the training budget was included in that, but no, that was just the capital expenditure. And the larger plane was 6.6 million. And you know, I mean, my point of this is that we do, the General Assembly watches those things when we ask those kind of questions when we're able to. And that's the thing that we wanted to hit on here. We didn't have a chance here because we were told it was being used for salt and related equipment. And none of us, including me, did not conceive of this situation where related equipment would be not one but two carriers.
So do you think they should sell the new planes?
I don't know. You look, you ask those questions of why do we have those versus just chartering or being part of NetJets or one of the other partial plane ownership programs that are out there. I say NetJets because they have a great operation here in Ohio, and so you ask yourself those questions. Does that make sense? And I don't know if those questions were asked. I wasn't consulted, and I wasn't given an opportunity to ask those questions.
Well, is that something you're gonna do? I mean, you look at the cost of pilots, the hangars, the maintenance, the capital expense, and the overall usage?
I think it's a safe guess when I get somebody from the administration in front of me in the committee, you will hear those questions from me.
So
They're
it's like
lovely,
you just
charming.
you just plan to ask questions at this point, you don't plan any actual.
Well, no, our hope is that when we finish our work, the General Assembly finishes our work on the transportation and the general revenue fund budget, we take away the language that's currently in current law and temp law that permits the LBM director to have that kind of broad authority to just transfer those funds and make those kind of expenditures. So that's a huge problem.
Could you put that in the budget? Is that the thought?
It could go in either budget, either this budget, or the transportation budget, or the general revenue budget. It could go in either of them.
The transportation budget is supposed to pass tomorrow,
Yes.
so you plan to introduce.
We have offered that, and we're talking amongst it in our caucus. Our caucus is discussing it. But there's a number of provisions when you look in that budget. There's a number of spots in there where it's just blanket authority of the OPM director to transfer funds, and that means the stuff that we appropriate the money for could be transferred out. Pretty much at the whim of the OPM director. Because when buying two King Airs becomes an emergency appropriation, I mean, I shake my head. If that's what constitutes the emergency committee, okay, to buy in that case, then anything that we put in our transportation budget would be subject to that kind of transfer. So we want to make sure we bring those kind of things in.